Good morning and welcome back to United TV. Michael Carrick, is he going to be almost certain to get the job next season? We're going to be looking at this because there are still a long way to go. Manchester United, the story regarding Carrick is, according to Andy Mitten, who's usually a very good source, and this is going to be probably discussed quite a lot over the next couple of weeks as Manchester United hopefully secure Champions League football sooner rather than later. I think sometimes a few stories got triggered last night as well, with Chelsea losing badly to Brighton. And actually, now Brighton are probably the team Manchester United need to be careful of regarding Champions League qualification. So, Manchester United, I believe, might still have to get about 4 points. But now we're going to be looking out for Brighton. I was not worried about Chelsea at all. That's five straight defeats for Chelsea. But Brighton are actually in a very good form at the moment. We do play Brighton at the end of the season. So, hopefully we can get some points against Brentford in the next game. Hopefully we can wrap up things before then. I'm not sure about Brighton's fixture list, but that's probably where the story's coming from to start with. So that's one angle of it. We will also be looking at the news that came out last night as well, that Manchester United will not be looking. It seems to be they will be very reluctant to look at managers that will be at the World Cup. Some of these managers in this picture as well, I know, will have extended their contracts. But there was talks yesterday regarding Nagelsmann. Two stories I did see. One was that Nagelsmann is throwing his hat into the Real Madrid job. I don't know if that's the case. I don't know if Nagelsmann's pushing to try and get the Real Madrid job, or whether there was also stories that Manchester United cooling a little bit on him. So there's a couple of angles for this. One is going to be, does Champions League football mean that Manchester United go for Michael Carrick and that's a done deal, or are we going to see a situation where potentially it's still up for grabs and there could be someone else? I think with Manchester United, it's difficult to guess at the moment. I get the feeling that it probably depends who's available. And as frustrating as this is, it might go down to the wire. It might take a little bit too long. Also, we will after that there will be obviously transfer discussions as well regarding what Manchester United are looking at doing. The story that came out last night, probably because of the defeat by Brighton, we will quickly look at this as well, saying that Chelsea apparently they're interested in other midfielders as well. Like Alex Scott is one that they're looking into, but then I'm not surprised considering that Chelsea did badly last night, and maybe Carlos Baleba, maybe he changed a few people's opinions last night. Good performance from him, very good performance from Brighton. So everything's on the table still. I think there's a lot of things to discuss as we head in towards what could be one of the busier transfer windows for Manchester United, like a very busy one. So let's go into the chat and see what people are thinking initially on the Michael Carrick situation. So I just saw that and said, I don't think it's you push for the Real Madrid job. I think it was something that there was a story put out there yesterday. That's what I'm saying. That when managers kind of, it's the same sort of story that sometimes you see managers saying that they'd be interested in the Manchester United job. If you see a manager we're linked to looking at the Real Madrid job, I don't think Nagelsmann would be interested in Manchester United if another job came up at a club that's a bit more successful at the moment. That's what I'm thinking. That's what I'm thinking. So let's go through the comments and discuss the news. Yanni says he's putting about a 20% chance on Michael Carrick getting it. I think it's 50-50 at the moment. It's kind of difficult. I think with Manchester United, the situation I think regarding the head coach does seem to be that United, they have said that they think transfers are more important. I think head coach is also very important. Look at Chelsea. It makes a big difference. Look at what's happening with Spurs. You get the appointments wrong and it's going to cause big problems. And say 20%, it seems a bit low, but again, long way to go. I think United have got. I think Michael Carrick's doing himself no harm. The fact he's got some consistency of results that United are looking at. We're probably like one win away, aren't we? Probably one win away from actually getting Champions League football, and that's probably going to be certainly a factor. Certainly a factor. I think Cody says he thinks it's a little bit higher. Yeah, my guess is a little bit higher, but it's going to be an interesting one because if you look at the list of managers linked to Manchester United, I think the list is gradually getting lower. And I saw a story yesterday that Eddie Howe was apparently linked, which I don't think would be a good option. Areola is linked as well by some journalists. It's going to be quite difficult. And so, honestly, I think with this, like, if you this is a good point. If you think Manchester United are going to go with Michael Carrick or they're going to go with another option, I think they're probably going to be. I don't think we're going to hear anything until it's actually decided whether Manchester United get Champions League or not. So that's something that I think there was leaked stories yesterday about Kerry Maynard agreeing a contract, and I think Manchester United would like to try and keep some of these stories a little bit quiet until something happens. If Manchester United, for example, beat Brentford, maybe we're going to be seeing, maybe we're going to see something come out. But there's still quite a long way to go in this. But it's interesting that at the moment, uh, each candidate that's linked to Manchester United, there's reasons why they maybe don't come. If you look at this list, how much control will these head coaches, managers be used to having? Nagelsmann, Tuchel, why is Poch on the list? But you look at the list and think Ancelotti. Obviously, he's a shout for, like, some people look at him as being like a maybe the manager that would be exciting, but he extended his contract with the national team anyway, so I don't see that happening. But how much control, how much power and influence will they have at Manchester United? They just won't have the levels they used to. And Manchester United interviewed Tuchel. I think that they interviewed Tuchel after the no, after the FA Cup final when Manchester United won. They were looking at replacing Eric Ten Hag. Then I think they spoke to Tuchel, and Tuchel wanted more control than Manchester United were prepared to give him. So I'm not ruling, and at this point in time, I don't think you can 100% rule people out, but I do think that some of the head coaches look at Manchester United and think they're not actually going to be able to make lots of decisions themselves, so it might put them off. But yeah, saying look at this one. So look what happened to Ollie. Results fell off a cliff after his announcement. Yeah, maybe that's what they're thinking of. Maybe it's like, if it's a done deal, maybe they're looking at the end of the season. Big up to you, Kazi, and big up to you, Daz, as well. So welcome, Rob Walls United, to the chat. So I did see a couple of comments, so I'll try and go through all the chat regarding this one. And this is one where I did think actually at some point maybe I should put a poll in and say, do you think it's likely? Do you think there's a good chance this happens? And welcome to Baftom in the chat. Another person I know that was actually pretty positive about Unai Emery as an option, and a few people have put out Emery as someone that's got Premier League experience, got European experience, does work with a squad that, I think Aston Villa have done pretty well actually over the whole season with managing Champions League football, managing the Premier League campaign, and they're actually at the moment. I think it's still, no, it's still Emery's done well this season. I think people will say bit of rough patch at the start of the season, but if Aston Villa get the same amount of points as Manchester United, I think that's quite impressive considering that we have had no European football, no cup runs at all. Um, so welcome back to the chat. So I'm on a train. Say Carrick's a safe choice until they can get the big name. League, say leagues full of children instead of managers. To get the right man when Pep leaves, it's party time. If you look at the situation at the top of the league, there's no Klopp. Slot's probably going to go. Look what's happening like Chelsea at the moment. Apparently, they're going to give Rafinha more time. I hope they do. I can't see Chelsea turning things around anytime soon. Arteta, if he doesn't get over the line, Arteta seems to be quite limited with his tactics. Arsenal are heavily reliant on the set piece, and I don't know. I don't see Arsenal actually progressing, and it's not necessarily the players. I think some of it is to do with the coach. And so, if you look at the Arteta situation, this Rafinha slot or slot replacement, Pep Guardiola is essentially levels above. I think Emery's probably the second best head coach in the top five at the moment, like taking Carrick out of the equation. So I think Manchester United, I think they're looking at, and this is kind of, I think, a sensible way of looking at it as well. I think Manchester United are thinking, what is the worst that will happen with Michael Carrick in charge? So if you're looking at this, like what is the worst that happens with Michael Carrick in charge? If he gets top three, and you look at it and say top three, it depends who's available. This is probably the serial question. Say managerial merry-go-round incoming. And so what I think with this one, that I do, yeah, there is like Real Madrid. So look at this, potentially Manchester City, potentially Arsenal, potentially Liverpool. I think actually Liverpool, I don't know the story, but I think that might be, someone was saying it was a done deal, someone else was coming in charge next season. But if you look at this, international managers, they obviously nothing can happen with them until the World Cup's finished. And for Manchester United, I think that's a problem. I think they want to make a decision a bit quicker. They also, Manchester United, I do believe they look at it and think if we make a decision before the World Cup, after getting Champions League football, and it is Carrick, then they all also I have read that they don't if they feel it's the wrong decision, then they think it's cheaper to actually replace the head coach than it is to actually waste time trying to get transfers. So I think United are going to prioritise transfers after the season finishes, and they're not going to wait after the World Cup to go for this one. So Real Madrid can get an elite coach and be a contender for the league. So United go for Carrick, a coach with only championship experience, with an interim manager bounce and hoping for top. Like, I don't. If Manchester United are out of the mix for European football, Jim, I think Carrick's gone. Like, I don't think Manchester United will be waiting around. Like the aim is not going to be top 10, is it? The aim has to be Champions League football again. I think with Michael Carrick, what they're seeing is what's the worst case scenario with Michael Carrick in charge, like the worst case scenario, because I think they see, as somebody said earlier, I think they see Michael Carrick as actually an option that is not risky. Like the risk with Carrick doesn't seem to be there. Like I don't think people are expecting Michael Carrick's teams to drop down to the levels that we saw a year ago. Welcome Foxy to the chat. So it's an easy decision for Manchester United to stick with Carrick if he gets top five. If you sack him and the next manager does poorly, people will complain, why don't you stick with Carrick? So this is the one word. So if you were looking at Manchester United's situation when Michael Carrick took over, what would be your thought process at the time? Would you look at it and say, right, he took over Manchester United were current no, when he took over, Manchester United were actually, I think we were fifth in the league. So we weren't doing as well, we're doing nowhere near as badly as we did the year before, but there was an inconsistency. I would say also we hadn't managed to get back to back wins for about a year. So to say we haven't improved, we definitely improved. We weren't able to get back to back wins. We were no, we did have a problem with AFCON. That would have been a problem for any head coach at the time. We were running quite low on players. But I think Michael Carrick's performances, if you looked at the time since Carrick took over, and just take any sort of like forget any games you watched. If you just look at the league table, Manchester United have picked up more points than any other club, and I think that's that's still the fact. So they picked up more points than any other club. Um, I think that with that one, it's difficult to make an argument that Michael Carrick would be risky. I think at the moment, I don't think he'd be risky, but I can understand that people don't find him as an exciting option. So it turns like Fox is saying, easy decision for Manchester United. I think it's a relatively easy decision because then it provides a little bit of stability into next season. You could look at like what the options are on the table, and at the moment, is there an option out there that people are free to post comments and say, if you look at options that you think are on the table and think, right, why aren't we going for this person? Cody says, I wouldn't go for Areola. He'll crumble like a pack of cards. Um, Bournemouth actually, if you look at the league table since Carrick took over, Bournemouth are actually second in the league. Like they're in terms of points since the 17th of January, Bournemouth are actually top. I think you'd probably say Brighton are up there as well. Brighton and Bournemouth are actually probably going to finish above Chelsea. So they're probably going to both finish above Chelsea. And at the moment, you'd probably put Bournemouth as being in one of those. Like, no, Areola's going to leave. Bournemouth are probably putting in one of the best seasons they've ever had. They're probably going to get European football, and he's going to go somewhere else. He heavily linked to the Newcastle job, but Newcastle fans I speak to not incredibly keen on Areola. So I don't know what people like. Would people be interested? Like, there's no doubt that Bournemouth play good football. Maybe the expectations and pressures are a bit different, but it's tricky. So the one thing I would say about Areola is the team was playing very well. When it came to January, Semenyo got sold. Like I was looking at Bournemouth the start of the season. Semenyo was unbelievable. If you remember August, September, Semenyo was unbelievable. The amount of goals he scored. I think he was like the second highest goal scorer in the Premier League at one point behind Haaland. And he was amazing in the first couple of months of the season. And it's still very good for up till January. He got sold. And when Semenyo got sold, Bournemouth, it's like nothing changed. Like absolutely nothing changed. Other players stepped up. the team still functions. So Areola is at the moment when we're linked to people like Glasner, we're linked to Thomas Frank. That Areola is the one person that has got it done on the pitch for most of the season. We're talking about like 4 or 5 games to go now, and Bournemouth possibly getting European football. I don't think they've ever got European football before, as far as I know. Okay, you're saying it's all luck. I don't think like 12, 13 games. I'll just say I don't think 12 to 13 games is lucky. That like, 1 or 2 games that are lucky. I think United have been a bit unlucky in like some of the suspensions, but I don't think we've been. I don't think we're lucky. I say, as good as Carrick has done this season, this is the easy part for him. I would say, okay, I think at the point he took over, United were actually improving, like fifth in the league. We were improving already, and Michael Carrick, with better coaching, has managed to like get. I think he probably got better results than we were expecting that we were going to get for the rest of the season. I don't think we were predicting we'd definitely get Champions League football when he took over. I think my expectation was Europa League football should be the minimum, and Champions League football would be extremely nice. If we're locking up Champions League football, and we've got 4 games to go, I think most of us think we're one win away from Champions League football. If we can get that wrapped up, I think in Manchester United then might look at Carrick and go, okay, what's the worst case scenario with Carrick? We should be aiming to get this, unless I'm not going to sit here and say, and if an elite manager comes available and says, right, I'm interested in joining Manchester United on a significant like long-term contract. I want to be part of the rebuild, and Manchester United view him as a perfect fit. I think then in that case it would be difficult for Michael Carrick. But I think if you compare him to maybe options where they might not be that keen, or you look at some of the options of Premier League managers, then I think there's definitely got to be probably a few managers that are linked where you think actually Michael Carrick's a better option. But I'm not going to say there isn't an option out there that Manchester United wouldn't go for instead of Carrick. I think Carrick can't do any more than he's done. I think in terms of no pre-season, you're going to get no transfers in January. You're going to have a few injury issues and a quite thin squad. I think if Manchester United got third behind Arsenal and Man City, there's literally there isn't any more that Carrick could have done. I know we haven't won every single game, but I don't think there's much more that Carrick could do than what he's done. I don't think we could have dropped Emery or Areola or say Glasner, Nagelsmann. I don't think we could have dropped any other head coach in January and actually finished above third in the league. I think third in the league is probably finishing above Liverpool and Chelsea is surprising considering where we were last season and considering what they've got resource wise. If we finished above Arsenal, it would Arsenal would have had to pretty much just lost every single game. And if we finished above Manchester City again with the squad they've got and the strength, like they've got Semenyo and Gay he signed in January, but those two players walk into our team. So no, I think Carrick's pretty much this is the topic. This is the best he could have done. But again, I think people are looking. If you're looking more medium term, Manchester United will be. Of course, they're going to look at other people if they think they're going to be a better option long term. That Carrick can be a very good option, but there can be a better option. It is quite difficult. So if Bournemouth so good, well, Bournemouth did go to Arsenal and win. They have been very good at the moment. They're going to play Manchester City, which is why there is still maybe a twist or a turn in this title race. If Bournemouth put a spanner in City's title race, can you imagine that? If Bournemouth actually do that, then that would be Ariola's stock would suddenly go up even higher, wouldn't he? So Scott says Bournemouth play great football. Areola is a fabulous coach. And so no way Carrick does at Bournemouth what Areola's done. My question would be really, I suppose, is how long has Areola been at Bournemouth? So then, and does Carrick like like can Carrick do what Areola's done at Bournemouth if he got given a bit of time? Like if you gave Carrick a few signings in the summer, and then Michael Carrick has like the pre-season. Could you be seeing that could you be seeing that maybe okay? It's difficult to say that if we had a conversation now and said, right, Michael Carrick's in charge next season, we probably have to see what the transfer window is going to be like. What would be the prediction of where he finishes? I think at the moment you could make an argument to say, right, if Carrick's in charge, we finish here. If Luis Enrique's here, expectations might go up, but it's going to be quite difficult to guess. I mean, I would say with Michael Carrick, then based on like half a season, it's quite difficult to say, isn't it? Though, so maybe with a whole season and Champions League football every other game, it might be quite difficult. But again, it is going to be a lot harder. And I think when I saw a comment saying that the job, it's a different job next season. It is a different job next season. That Manchester United, can you imagine? We played against Leeds, then we played against Chelsea. Can you imagine if in the middle of that we had a Champions League match? That's the difference, isn't it? If we'd have had to go to, let's say, Bayern Munich and play a knockout match with them and then try and come back to the Premier League, this squad wouldn't cope. And it wouldn't matter who's in charge. This squad would not be suitable, but it's not got the depth to do this sort of thing. Eddie Howe, yeah, I think Newcastle fans are 50-50. I would say from the outside, looking at the players that Newcastle have got, looking at the players that Bournemouth have got. If Bournemouth get European football, and say if Bournemouth got European football and then Areola was there, that would be a big step up as well. But it'd be very interesting to see how a manager like Areola. Obviously, we're not going to find out because he's going to leave at the end of the season. But if Areola got European football with that Bournemouth squad, that Bournemouth aren't going to be able to buy lots of players. They're probably going to be losing some of their players because they've been put into the spotlight. I mean, we're looking at a few Bournemouth players as well. They obviously had a good season, like a very good season, and the manager's going to go. This is kind of a similar situation to Brentford last season, where Thomas Frank left, Wissa and Buemo left, Norgard left. They lost a lot of players. They lost a lot of resources, but also Brentford are bounced back as well. And yeah, also Ariola's transfer window at the end of the season was pretty much losing like three-quarters of his defense, wasn't it? So different job, but probably a good comparison. It's like look at Eddie Howe at Newcastle with Champions League plus the Premier League. It's really falling apart a little bit, isn't it? Whereas if you look at Emery at Aston Villa, who's got the best squad, Aston Villa or Newcastle? Because a lot of people are saying about Tonali, Bruno Guimaraes, and if you look at Aston Villa, I suppose they've got a few standout players as well. Rogers being the main one this season. I think that it shows that Emery is a better manager than Eddie Howe. I think if Newcastle were looking to try and get an upgrade, Emery might be a great option. Emery's got European experience. Emery's like managed to successfully do okay in European football, but also not drop out of the Champions League positions. So if Newcastle are looking at Areola, I think Emery's a little bit further along because he's proven that he can run a European campaign successfully and it doesn't affect Premier League football. This is the thing that Michael Carrick hasn't had a chance to even prove yet. He hasn't had a chance at the moment. So as I saw, Neil said, I hope Carrick gets the job because we have top managers before and it hasn't been great. It's been, yeah. There was a story yesterday with Jose Mourinho saying that he thinks Carrick should get the job. I mean, Jose Mourinho would have been, let's say, years ago, he was one of the kind of managers that would come in and you'd have expectations that he's going to be a big improvement. And yeah, maybe Carrick just deserves the chance to actually try and do it. I think if I was looking at what Manchester United want to try and do, I don't think Manchester United are actually, I don't think Manchester United are actually going to be hoping that uh, there's a good option out there. They're probably looking to see what there is at the end of the season. It's quite difficult to guess, but I will put a poll in the comments and see what people think because that's going to be interesting. I would say yeah, Bournemouth winning at Arsenal was pretty impressive as well. I'd say the thing with Bournemouth, Brentford, and Brighton, these clubs are run almost to perfection from top to bottom. Recruitment's right, to get the right managers to fit the right system style of play. This is I think a good point at the moment. These three clubs are very well organised. They are clubs that I'm not going to say if you keep taking players out of these clubs, eventually it's going to be difficult for these teams to keep going on. But it's difficult to compare a head coach at these teams with other teams that are badly run. I'm trying to think of what's an example of a club that's not well run at the moment. Is Chelsea starting to become an example of a club that's not well run? Possibly, you could say. I'm going to say Spurs are an example of a club not particularly well run with how things are going, transfers, some of the players, the situation. And I think at the moment, if you drop head coaches into Spurs, they're going to struggle. If you drop a good head coach into a team like Bournemouth Brighton or Brentford are three examples there. At the moment, those clubs are quite well set up. I'd say, given what's happened at the moment, I think Bournemouth and Brentford are probably tying for like the most impressive because they both lost a lot of players recently, and some key players as well. I mean, I wouldn't have thought we'd be talking about Semenyo leaving and then Bournemouth actually locking up Champions League football. That is probably a pretty crazy one. So let's have a look. I'll put a poll in the chat and we can have a vote on this one about what people think. So as always, it's going to be a bit subjective, and if we got some, we can go on to some transfer discussions as well. So I'll put this will. So it's going to be will Carrick be in charge next season? This is going to be a guess, obviously. We might find out pretty soon. We play next Monday, don't we? So next Monday, and then I think it depends on who Brighton play. And if at the moment, if Brighton drop points, but they're doing very well, and Manchester United can get some points against Brentford, we're pretty much there. So will Carrick be in charge next season? Is kind of the poll just to see what people think. And I think it's going to be at this point in time. Is Champions League football going to be a factor? One of the things I've also read is that it's not 100% going to be. No, it's not 100% on the results. It's also about things behind the scenes because I think Manchester United do also appreciate that this team is not where it needs to be in terms of like the recruitment hasn't been as good for as long as Bournemouth, Brentford, Brighton, those sort of clubs. So they do appreciate that things are not where they should be. No one's going to think no one thinks our squad should be like top two at the moment. So yeah, the table doesn't lie. The worst team in the Premier League has been Wolves over 32, 33 games so far. Manchester United are third in results. Who's been better than Manchester United this season apart from Arsenal and Manchester City? Aston Villa have been pretty much the same, haven't they? We're level on points with them. Liverpool have been quite poor. Liverpool actually would be much lower if they hadn't got those late wins. And anyone think there's players worth taking from relegation teams? Then I suppose it depends who gets relegated, doesn't it? Then Fernandez, G, West Ham. If you're looking at, I think Forest are probably safe, but Forest have got a few players, Anderson and Murillo being the obvious ones. If you're looking at, I think there's like I think there's like a midfielder from Burnley that's quite highly rated. And Gomez at Wolves is an obvious one. I think you've also got I think the young striker at Wolves as well is a good option. There's definitely going to be a few. There's definitely I think a few teams. If you look at Spurs, Spurs might be one of those teams that are expecting to bounce back up. They would probably put. I think they'd probably put a high price tag. I don't know. Would Spurs have a relegation clause like for some of the transfers? I don't know. I don't know if people would be forcing their way out. That would be something that I think it's not something that I already thought about with Spurs. I didn't think Spurs would be relegated, but it could be happening. Um, yeah, no, well, it's going to make the season a bit more interesting, isn't it? That I think if Manchester United would have got Champions League football already done, if it wasn't for Brighton and Bournemouth actually suddenly taking off, and I think with that one, it's going to be quite interesting. I say players are always worth taking from relegated sides. There's going to be some good quality around the league, isn't there? I'm just trying to think of what happened last time. Was it Amari Hutchinson did he go to Nottingham Forest in the end? Delap went to Chelsea, but he hasn't really done particularly well. There's always going to be some good players. If you look at Tillemans when Leicester were getting relegated, there's always going to be good players at teams getting relegated and it's just about picking like which players would be suitable. If Nottingham Forest got relegated, then we'll be talking about Anderson being signed from a relegated team, and he'd be a good option. If you go to Spurs, the Spurs players that people talk about. I've heard people talking about like Pedro Porro was put out there recently. Van der Ven will always be talked about. There's going to be some quality in this. There's some players in the Spurs team that people would take. I think the worry with Spurs players is that they will potentially be quite expensive. and potentially when things get rough, look at the Spurs players. They've been folding quite badly. I think when we look at Spurs defence, on paper people will say Pedro Porro, Van der Ven, but when I've watched Spurs play, I'm hoping it's the Spurs organisational thing and not individual players. But also Romero, who I do think would be a big gamble. I think Spurs will want money, which will make it not possible. Let's say if Michael Carrick's not backed, if Michael Carrick's not backed, then Manchester United are they're going to struggle to play Champions League football and Premier League football. But if Areola came in and wasn't backed, I think it would be a struggle for him as well. And Nagelsmann and Luis Enrique, and they're not going to look at Manchester United unless there's got to be significant investment, isn't there? Like significant investment. All the players we had this season, can you imagine them having to play an extra game a week? From like Luke Shaw, from Casemiro, from like just trying to think like Harry Maguire. These players are not going to be putting in the same level if they're playing double the amount of games. And it would some parts of the season it would be the Champions League is much bigger competition than it used to be. That's why it's critical to get him back in there because of all the money. It's really difficult. As Joel said, yeah, any head coach coming in to Manchester United, it's exactly the same situation. If Manchester United don't get the transfer window right, they're going to struggle. No one's going to come in and suddenly be able to get Champions League football next season and also do a very successful Champions League campaign with the squad we've got at the moment. There's probably the teams that are above us in terms of depth are going to be Liverpool, Arsenal, Manchester City. That's the difference. It's not players 1 to 11, it's players 12 to 17, where they've just got a bench of international players where we've got one or two options on the bench, but also a lot of academy players. So that's going to be the difference. Manchester United probably need to get around the range of like at least 5 to 6 good quality players to make that squad the next level. It's going to be difficult. I think if they got, I would be satisfied if Manchester United got 4 players capable of being first team options and maybe at least 2 to 3 rotation options. Maybe the odd academy player gets some opportunities, but I think you've got to get as minimum. You've got to do at least what we did last season, but then get a bit more depth around that. That if you're going to get at least 2 very good quality midfielders, a third midfielder isn't going to have to be necessarily that premium level signing, but you have to look at it in terms of you need quality to start with, and then you definitely need to make sure you got some depth. Can be a bit of competition as well, a bit of if you got 2 people for each position, at least you got a bit of competition. So, in your opinion, we're winning because of moments from players rather than the form of the team, but the results are very good under Carrick, so he's earned a chance. I'm just trying to think. I suppose with this one that I think when you're talking about say a win against Chelsea or other wins that have been quite close. That I think sometimes you see some games. I think with the win against Arsenal, I think sometimes in games we've been defensively and off the ball very good for most of the game. There's been games where we played very well for large parts of the game. I think in Arsenal we played extremely well when Arsenal were really attacking us at the start of that game. I think we played very well for pretty much the whole match against Manchester City. I think the probably the Fulham game was one where Fulham scored a wonder goal and one goal, which was a bit of a fluke. So there's been games where United played well. I think we largely played okay against Everton. Didn't really give Everton too many chances and then hit them on the break. But again, results under Carrick have been actually better than results that Manchester City have got under the same time period. So I know the situation's a little bit different. That they have Champions League football, which is a factor. But I think largely if you're looking at this, it is a results based business, isn't it, for the owners and largely for fans to some extent. So I think the results are good, and that's why people are thinking that's going to be enough. So knowing that how much needs to be done, how much needs to be spent, um, this is probably this is one where how much do you think needs to be spent on the team? How much do you think that is this the same sort of situation as last year? Do you remember last year? It felt like a very important transfer window last year, and we can now talk about this with authority, can't we? That at the start of the season, well, I'd say if you rewind back to if you think back to August, then Lamans hadn't played. I think Cunha, actually, Benjamin Sesko didn't start either in the first game, wasn't available. Cunha did have like a little bit of injury issues early on and didn't feature in every game. And probably the first couple of games or first few games, and Bremo pretty much stood out as being like, okay, the one player that was having a positive impact. And now we've got almost a season of football to discuss. I think we'd look at last transfer window and say Lamans was an excellent signing, Cunha was an excellent signing, Benjamin Sesko looks like a very good signing, and it is certainly. I think most people think Benjamin Sesko is going to improve, and even though he's dropped in form recently, I think most people will look at Mbuemo and say he is levels above Garnacho last season, and you look at that and think, yeah, I think that's going to be a very good transfer window. Like four players, all those four players did have a big impact this season. They have been good signings, and United need to do the same. They need to do the same every single season, don't they? We got lucky last season, only four signings, but they all worked out. And if we go into this transfer window, we probably need to have like, at least six. I think no deals in January. We should have done like one or two deals in January. That apparently was going to be rolled over into the summer signing. So if you look at Manchester United's summer business, you've got to also, I think you've also got to look at and say, we didn't do a deal in January. And Semenyo and Gahey going to Man City. I think last January they got Marmoush, didn't they? So other teams spending quite big in January. Even like Crystal Palace and other teams mid-table were spending quite big money. So I think Manchester United are going to be pretty much. They need to do like two transfer windows in one, don't they? They need to get the two players they should have got in January. They need to get like the sort of five players they need in the summer. And I think we need. I think we need four first team players and a few other players. Like it's not going. I don't think we're going to get seven players, but I think we need to get at least five or six. I say 400 to 500 needs to be spent. It could be that Manchester United often spend about 200, 250 million with extra money coming in, Champions League money coming in. Player sales could be, player sales could be 100 million coming in as well, and lots of transfer fees. Sorry, lots of salaries off the books that are quite high. I think United have got the scope to try and do this one, and so I think we actually need to make sure we get a lot of players in. You're saying United do need seven new players. We're losing six to seven. That's why I think we do need that many. We're losing a lot of players that we lost them really. We lost Anana, Rashford, Sancho a year ago, and they didn't get replaced. Ericsson, we lost him, and even sort of squad options like Evans, Lindelof. The amount of players we lost last season was a lot, and we effectively we have to assume that over the course of the season, you're going to have a few injuries at any time. You're going to have a few suspensions, and United, we can't be in a situation where we have to play a Champions League game and throw in an academy player. So seven new players, I think, is got to be a minimum. I'm just saying that if you're going to go for expensive players, and say expensive players that would be like a Anderson, maybe like let's have a look at some of the players linked to say this is kind of like the price, isn't it? So if you look at the story of Manchester United battling with Chelsea for Alex Scott, for example, Alex Scott is priced apparently maybe you could get him for 50, might be 55, but these are the sort of signings that sort of price I think you can buy four to five players maximum. Like I don't think Manchester United are going to buy seven players that cost 50 plus million, but you could look at it and say I think you can get seven players. Maybe four of them are going to be quite expensive. I don't mind getting a couple of players that are going to be a bit cheaper. And when I say a bit cheaper, I mean like so Hayden Hackney price or 30 to 35 million. Van Hecker at Brighton is definitely someone that I think about 35 million might be a good option. I don't think United can spend say 60 plus million on a centre back. I don't think we can spend that sort of amount of money on left back cover, but I think there's going to be options to try and buy a few players in that idea. And I think also it's going to be a priority, isn't it? Over what is the priority for Manchester United? What do you want to get in first? One of the things I saw as well that one of the things I've noticed is a lot of the players Manchester United are linked with now. When you're looking at a backup striker or left winger, And that's one position that lots of people look at the media. We're linked to Diamonde, we're linked to Ndai, we're linked to Luca Paqueta, I think back in January or December. So, and also Adeyemi stories occasionally come out. So we're quite often linked with strikers. Yildiz is one I saw recently as well. I do like Yildiz. But you look at these players we're linked to, we're starting to be linked with a few players as well, quite young, but also a few players where people, some of the sources are also pushing out there that maybe Manchester United are actually looking at a player that can play on the left or play as a striker. And it might be that if you're looking at a player that's 19, then at 19, 20, that sort of age, they probably they probably haven't defined their position. If they haven't played a lot of football, it might be that they're still quite flexible. And I think United are looking at this as well. This is something that Vivell talked about ages ago, saying looking at players that are somewhat versatile, can play different positions. It's a little bit like saying, like, could Koemanu play very like deep in front of the back four? Could he play a bit further forward? Could we look at Mbeumo? Mbeumo's not as effective as a striker, but he still did well there at Brentford. He's still done okay at Manchester United. We still won games when he started there, but it's not perfect. Couldn't you play more than one position? And you look at that as Manchester United looking at players like Mazraoui, for example. Maybe not the best at wing back, but certainly when he was in the right hand side of a back three was good. Centre back partnership with Aiden Heaven. Again, not going to be as effective as at other positions, but it is useful. And I think with this one, I do think Manchester United will be looking at a left winger, and that player will also be the backup striker. That's my guess at the moment. And we'll have to see how that works out because I don't know if Manchester United would sign a left winger plus a backup striker. I think they should, but I'm thinking they might look at attacking players as going to be right. This player could play in what two positions, and maybe we're going to have four players at the team that could all play like more than one position in the front three. So it's a little bit like having, I suppose, Anthony Martial, Greenwood, Rashford, and saying, look, they can't all play just one position. They could maybe play another position. They're probably going to have a position which is the best suited, but yeah, it's not going to be set in stone. And say, I looking at this one, say three midfielders, one centre back, striker, left winger. I think that's a perfect list. To be honest, if you're looking at Manchester United in terms of that, that's a perfect list. I would say the big money is going to be two midfielders are the big money. The third midfielder a little bit cheaper. Then centre back, I think Manchester United should be going mid range for this. But I don't know if I think Aiden Heaven and Euro are good. Unless you're thinking of replacing Euro, then I think it maybe like 30, 35, 40 million, maybe that sort of price point. Left winger seems to be something they might be spending quite big money on. And I think what they might be doing with left winger, that might be why they want to possibly trying to find an elite player if they can. And they might be looking at the left winger to play more than one position across the front three. That's why I think they might be going quite big on that. I mean, Semenyo was the one they were looking at. I think it's that sort of money possibly, and I'm not sure about the striker. Left back. I think there might well be a situation where there's probably a combination of like, are they going to be giving, say, just trying to think, a mass? Would he get a, a bit of a run in the team? Would they be looking at potentially going for? I think what United are thinking of, it might be a gamble. I think they're hoping that Luke Shaw plays most of next season, and they buy a younger player that's eventually going to compete for him. There was like Pedro Porro linked. I think there's potentially other players linked as well, but I think it might be a budget constriction with that one. I think given that all the stuff we need to do, I think the big money goes on the midfielders, and I think the big money goes on the left wing slash striker option. I think that's where the big money gets spent, and I think the other options are incredibly important as well. I think for me, the that we've seen all the midfielders linked, and we've all got a big list of like we see Believer, we see Anderson, we see Tonali, all these different players. I'm kind of starting to get interested in the centre back situation because I'm looking at the centre back situation and thinking I think Aiden Heaven is potentially a big player next season if things go right. Not every single game, but I think Aiden Heaven could make big improvements next season, and I think he needs to have some experience next to him. And with Delit and Martinez's injury issues, and even like with Maguire being not going to be available every single game, I'm thinking United need to go for some experience and to play alongside Heaven, maybe play alongside Euro as well. Like he will definitely be playing games. So the midfield, I think we're going to get a good player. I'm a bit concerned a little bit that maybe I'm not sure about centre back. I hope we don't skimp on that. That would be a bit disappointing. It's saying we're not going to end up with Conor Gallagher. Conor Gallagher has gone. He is a Spurs player. Although if Conor Gallagher was very very cheap, maybe I don't think Conor Gallagher joined Spurs going right. Let's get a release. Let's get a relegation clause in because Spurs had Champions League football, didn't they? So I don't know. James Maddison is too injury prone. Bowen's actually good. Bowen's good, but Bowen is not leaving. He is not leaving West Ham, is he? Like, if West Ham goes down, Bowen's pretty much tied to the mast. He's not going to leave that ship, is he? So, also, please click the likes if you just tuned in. If you're new to the channel, please get involved in the conversation. Please post some comments as well. I say United are saving 17.5 million loaning out Rashford to Barca. Yep. 6 on Onana, 12 on Sancho, a lot of money there. Also, don't forget the Sancho Casemiro contracts, they're off the books. They're gone. So that's already gone. Yeah, we dodged the Gallagher train. It's not coming back unless it's going to be a massively cheap deal. So Galatasaray making Bruno priority. I don't think it's a priority for Bruno. So good luck Galatasaray. There's no way Bruno's jumping ship from Manchester United to Galatasaray. Um, they're ready to push the limits to what 40 million euros. That is a funny one. That is good. That is comedy gold. Uh, Manchester United, what taking 35 million for Bruno? That is actually that is. Oh well, you got to admire Galatasaray's his efforts, but no, that's not going to happen. Welcome to chat, old man. Says yeah, no, I think Gallagher that's gone, isn't it? So three world-class midfielders equals more stability in midfielders than two plus one centre back. Let's say move Martinez to centre midfield. Let's say defenders will feel less pressure when passing. Say fullbacks would be a bonus. Say the following summer we splash out on the defence. I would say that yeah, if Manchester United can control games more, this is something that we have also said as well. That when you look at Manchester United's defence, and I think we said this a little bit about too many and Real Madrid and other teams. If you've actually got a very good midfield, and sometimes you look at it, say Manchester City, when they were controlling games and their midfield was functioning really well a couple of seasons ago, there wasn't really much scrutiny on Manchester City's defence because they didn't have much to deal with, did they? They didn't have a lot to do. And I think United, some of their defenders this season and last season, there's a lot more scrutiny because you're essentially just facing a lot more runners, a lot more problems. When you're giving the ball away, when your team is quite weak in transition, our defence had a lot to do. It made it difficult. So it made it pretty difficult. We got on that one. So maybe you see this that you know how you look at the team as a whole, and I think this is a good point that if Manchester United fix the midfield, then the defence will. Yeah, there's two things that will happen. If Manchester United fix the midfield, one of the good things is that the back four will be more protected. They will look better. They will have less pressure, less problems. But also, if Manchester United, when you see players like being more effective in midfield, like say someone like Anderson, if we drop Anderson into midfield and he's winning the ball back so much more, it's going to make our attack look better because we win the ball higher up the pitch. I think Mbeumo's ability to press and win the ball higher up the pitch does actually then feed into Manchester United getting more chances and potentially getting more goals. So it's all I think fixing midfield like transforms things, and this is why that Michael Carrick, Nagelsmann, Areola, any head coach you get, then they'll all do worse with Manchester United not addressing the midfield issue. I'd say three world-class midfielders would be great. I suppose what you're looking at is Bruno Fernandes is going to be here. Kobe Mainu signed that 5-year contract. So with the 5-year contract, Kobe Mainu is going to be certainly part of the team for the foreseeable future. You're going to be looking at. That's what I'm thinking. Two world class midfielders is a bit like what Chelsea did. Although Chelsea their world-class midfielders struggled with Belieber last night and didn't do very well. So Belieber could be uh, back on the maybe cards as being someone that United are interested in, based on like now he did very well against £200 million worth of two midfielders, didn't he, at Chelsea? So the price tags I think is going to be quite high, but I think if we got two world class midfielders to go into our team, for me that would be good. Like if we got three world class midfielders, I don't think we can have those three plus Mainu and have. I don't think we can have two world class midfielders sat on the bench. Like I don't think that's going to happen. I think we have to just pick which ones we want and have rotation options because they're still going to play a lot of games, aren't they? But I think we need to look at it and say the bench. I don't mind having a good midfield option on the bench. That would be obviously important, but I think it'd be disappointing if we had a situation where if Delit doesn't come back, for example, then we got Lissandro Martinez, who is worryingly, injury record is very bad. I think he's missed half the games at least that he's been at Manchester United, and we'd be a bit reliant on Harry Maguire. So I'd be looking at centre backs, but I don't think we need to spend like 50, 60 million. I think there's good options out there. Senesi on a free is one that people are kind of looking at, thinking, would that be a decent option? He's a little bit older than players we look at, but yeah, I still think it's a potential option. Um, Rob says, what worries me is that we're so slow, 7 weeks from Buemo. I think with Mbeumo, then I remember talking about Mbeumo last season, and it felt like it went on for I don't know about a year. But with Mbeumo, I think with that, it took a long time, but the deal was like wrapped up really quickly in terms of like Mbeumo wanted Manchester United, Manchester United wanted Mbeumo. Some of the complications might have been that behind the scenes there was lots going on at Brentford regarding internally. I remember if you look at it with Brentford, they also their office closed on weekends, which is like obviously they're a smaller club, and also, they were replacing their manager. They were internally hiring. They were also losing a lot of players at the club. So Brentford lost a lot of good players. And I think with this one, Manchester United were just trying to structure the deal. If you remember, it was a different financial situation. So it was very much about structuring the deal. It did take a long time and it was frustrating, but it wasn't there. It wasn't vulnerable. I think it was just that Man United, we had to make sure that Brentford would accept certain payments and installments because United had a really serious financial pressure. So I think with that one, it did take a long time, but there was reasons for it. It's frustrating, but I'm hoping that this season United's financial situation is a lot better. So I'm hoping that it won't be the same drama. But so Arsenal tried to get Sesko for 2 months before they gave up and went for Gyökeres, and the Arsenal replaced their sporting director, didn't they? So they replaced their director of football. So the new person coming in didn't want. I think Edu wanted to get Sesko. The new person coming in wanted to get Gyökeres. Arteta wanted to get Sesko. So they had issues as well. Newcastle had massive issues with Isak. I think even like Liverpool had quite a drawn out battle with Wirtz with Bayern Munich, I believe. So I think with Man United, the Brentford thing got agreed quite quickly, but it does seem to be. It's just I think all top deals take a lot of time, even when it's straightforward. Like the Cunha one was quite straightforward because there was a release clause, and I think with Mbeumo, it was about getting those extra. United were trying to get the very cheapest price. In the end, United may have got a slightly better deal if they'd done the deal maybe a month quicker. Because in the time it took us to get the Mbeumo deal done, if you remember, Gittins went, Elanga went, and players started going for big money. So some of these deals, if you're looking at the summer transfer window now, and I've got Adams on screen because Adams is kind of actually Scott is one that makes me think about this. If you're looking at Scott as an option, I think that Bournemouth wants 65. Teams think that Chelsea, Manchester United think that they could get the deal done for a bit cheaper, but it still might be like 55. I don't think it's going to be significantly cheaper. But this might be one of those deals, or Angela Stiller, or possibly like there's another option on the table as well. You might be able to get a deal done quickly if you act pretty rapidly. As soon as the transfer window is open, if you make a big offer, it could get done. And so So if Anana was involved in the Anana moving in Matrix bullet time, then yeah, it would have been unfortunately that sort of speed, wouldn't it? So no, but there's a few factors in place, isn't there? I think transfers feel very slow, but even when we're talking yesterday about Conceição and the player that Manchester United have been tracking, Barcelona tracking. By the time it comes to the media attention, some of these deals they've been months in the making and they've been talked about for a long time. So it's not going to be rapid. Unfortunately, a lot of transfer deals just take a lot of time, and that's probably going to be the factor. Also, I think at the time, it might have been that Brentford would just yeah, there wasn't pressure on Brentford because they were going to get big money, and there was links with Spurs. So even though Mbeumo only chose Manchester United, I think potentially for Brentford, it's like we can get a bit more money. Also, there was rumours, wasn't there? There was rumours that Worcester and Mbeumo they couldn't both go. So I remember at the time we were a bit concerned that if Worcester went, we might have to pay even more for Mbeumo. So yeah, I think. I wonder if Man United have learned any lesson from this. That I wonder if we're going to try and be a bit quicker in the future. I hope so. I hope so because I think with if you look at Langer costing nearly 65, no, was it 60, 55 plus five, and you look at some of the deals. I can't remember off the top of my head how much Wissa cost, but if you leave things late in the transfer window, we'll have the same situation we had last year. Can you remember? If you remember the last week of the transfer window, Manchester United tried to get Brighton and Brighton just put a huge price on Belieber. If Manchester United got Champions League football and we wait till the last week of the transfer window and try and get, say, a Belieber or try and get, I'm trying to think who else might be available at that time. I'm sure Wharton will have gone. I'm sure Anderson will have gone. But if we're trying to get Tonali or we're trying to get maybe someone like maybe we're trying to get Scott or we're trying to get Belieber. If we're waiting till the end of the transfer window to try and get those deals done, if you're in charge of those teams, that one of the reasons is the fact that Manchester United will be desperate at that point. If we've got Champions League football and we need an extra midfielder, we'll be in a desperate situation. But also, if you wait till that late in the day, then if you want to buy Scott on like deadline day, Bournemouth are going to want to replace him. If you're trying to buy Belieber on like say a couple of days to go, then Brighton might have to then line up someone. I'm sure they've got people lined up, but they might have to line someone up then. So there's a lot. If you go early in the transfer window, like I know at this point in time, Bournemouth, Brighton, Brentford, they're clubs that regularly sell. They will have a list of targets they're looking at. They'll have loads of options if they want to replace these players. They always do. And if you go early, it might make it a bit cheaper because they can then get those players before those players go up in price. One of the things I did see, which I thought was kind of interesting, was when we were looking at trying to buy Embuemo, and this is one of the things that also put the price up a little bit, is there was a few targets that Brentford wanted, and because it started taking a long time, Brentford actually the targets they wanted to replace Embuemo with, they started going up in value. So it's a little bit like selling a house. If you're trying to buy a house, and you've got to sell your house first, if you wait a long time and the house market's buoyant, which the transfer window was going up, then sometimes it'd be like, right, you just need to get these deals done because the longer you take, the more difficult it's going to be. And I think Brentford looked at some players they wanted to replace Mbema with. They started going up in value, and then that's why they said, look, we need to get 65 from Mbema now. So, and I don't mind actually being a little bit more aggressive in that one. Uh, Big up to the people that subscribed as well. Thank you for getting locked in today. And please, like, if you're new to the channel, please post a few comments as well, and just say hello, and we'll see what you're thinking about what the discussion is today. So Newcastle paid 57.7 million for Wissa. That's a lot, isn't it? That's a lot. I think that's the problem, isn't it? That if Wissa had gone first, I think Mbeumo cost even more. Like I really do. I think if West had gone first and Bremer would cost even more because they would be, yeah, it would be difficult, wouldn't it? Will we adopt a one in one out strategy? I sincerely hope not, Stephanie. Unless you're counting like say, okay, these are players that are already out. Rashford, Onana, Rasmus Højlund, so I think Sancho, those players are already out and then they haven't been replaced. So if we're going to get four players, then we can start talking about one in, one out. So if you get those four players to start with, which I think we need to get as a minimum, and then look at it and say Casemiro is going. I'm trying to think. So you got those four players I just mentioned. Casemiro makes it five. I think Toby Collier getting loaned out as well. That's a six. And if you look at Ugarte or Xerxes leaving, that's a seven. I think we need to get seven players. And Yardi put a list up about half an hour ago or about 20 minutes ago that was perfect. I think seven signings is kind of what we need to go for. And I think that's why the price is going to be somewhat interesting for what they're going to be. So Funchi says that £100 million players, Anderson and Tonali, they're going to be too much. And then so you can get a better deal if you're looking at, say, some of these players you mentioned. Too is one where apparently the latest I've seen about Tchouaméni is Real Madrid want to get Tchouaméni on a new contract. So I don't know what the contract situation is with him. I think he's been there about possibly, I think it was 2022 he signed. So it might be coming up for 4 years with Tchouaméni. So it might be there's this problem there that so we might find out quite quickly because Real Madrid tend to like not waste too much time. But if the too many stories are basically him trying to get a better contract, that would make sense. That's happened in the past with other players. But it does seem to be that Real Madrid do not want too many to leave. If too many doesn't sign a contract, we will definitely revisit that story because that will be interesting then. But at the moment, Real Madrid want to extend that deal. But I think Funcho's listed probably, yeah. If he says like Scott, Belieber, Stiller, they're three targets, aren't they? You can get those three for less than 200 million. It's a good deal. The one that's most interesting for me is going to be how much will Belieber cost? Like, do you know he played quite well last night. I didn't watch the game, so I was streaming, but apparently he did play quite well last night. Is there a danger that Belieber plays like really well for a few games and suddenly we see the price push back up? I mean, I don't know what people think about Belieber, how much he should cost. No, over the whole season, there's not a lot of evidence, is there? But yeah, yeah, Casemiro has already agreed to go to my it's Miami, isn't it? I'm trying to think. I think it's Miami. Say go that. So I'll remember that comment, and then if it happens, I'll be surprised. I'll be surprised. I think this goes beyond like Carrick. I think it goes more senior. I don't think he'll be back at the club. But say Wissa and Langer look to be flops of the season. Say Wissa got one goal in 16 games. Alanga got only one assist in the league. Wow, wow. I'll say this with Alanga. I think Alanga was a perfect player for Forest a year ago. Nottingham Forest. But if you watch Manchester United versus Forest last season, that was perfect for Alanga. If you're looking at Forest, were a very good counter-attacking team. That I saw them play a couple of games where they defended like against Liverpool, and then hit on the break, and they were very successful with that. And Alanga is perfect player for his ridiculous pace, perfect player for that. But when you go to Newcastle they've got a good midfield. Newcastle are going to be playing very differently to uh, Forest. They're going to have more possession. They're going to play more in control of games, particularly at home as well. They're a difficult team. And I think Elanga was going to struggle. There's no space for Elanga to run into a lot of the time. And I don't know if there's other issues. I don't know if he's been injured or anything, but I don't think Elanga suits Newcastle as much as he suited Forest. I think when he's got more space to run into on a team that's maybe there, if you're running a low block and then you've got Elanga can run down the pitch, he's very effective. I can't really speak about Wissa. I think Wissa moved from a better functioning team. I think like Brentford were a better functioning team this season than Newcastle. I say last season they were a better functioning team than Newcastle this season. So yeah, I think Worcester was like big waste of money for Newcastle. Like Newcastle have some financial issues. They can't be wasting money like that. That was obviously a big mistake. So United are hopeful that Yoro will be fit to face Brentford at Old Trafford. So Chris Will and Nathan Salt. I think there's a good chance he does that. But at the moment, though, I think Harry Maguire will be back after injury, won't he? I would be looking at, say, Brentford are going to be a difficult game. I'm just thinking, like, I don't know, it's going to be a difficult one. I would imagine with United, we'll be looking at it's going to be Maguire plus Aiden Heaven, I think, isn't it? Unless they think Euro is going to be a big upgrade on Heaven. Jim says, I hope they put the price back up for Belieber. United will walk away. Does it feel? Does it feel like there's more options this summer? Like last summer, Manchester United, like we only really went for Belieber at the end of the season, and now it's apparent we're looking for midfielders. Do you think the price is going to be like? Do you think there's a certain level that Belieber price can go up to, and then beyond that, Manchester United will just look at it and go, actually, if Belieber becomes crazy money, we're going to get Alex Scott. And if don't get Alex Scott, we'll get Angela Stiller. And if we don't get Angela Stiller, we'll get this player. There's a lot of players, isn't there? And I think Belieber's a good player. Like he's not had the best season, but I don't think Manchester United are in the mix where when we went to Brighton at the end of last season and tried to get Belieber, it was so late in the transfer window. Brighton just put a crazy number and hoped Manchester United would pay it, and it didn't. It didn't happen. And I think now, when you go into the transfer window, knowing Manchester United looking at midfielders, I think it changes things a little bit. So looking at the free agents, I'll just quickly go for some of these that I have seen. And Vlahovic, I'm not keen on Vlahovic, but it would depend on the salary demand. I believe it would be quite expensive, even though it's a free agent. I think he might be one of the more pricey ones. Goretzka's one that people have talked about for midfield. I think because of the experience with Casemiro, I think Manchester United are going younger than Goretzka. I think Goretzka is obviously decent, but I think United are looking at spending big on midfield. So I don't think free agents for midfield. Looking at the other ones, so Basuma, Kamada, I think it was this one. Senesi seems to be the most likely because Manchester United could do with a defensive option. And I don't. I think when you're looking at centre backs, like centre backs, it doesn't matter too much about the age. When you're looking at players that are say 28, 29, centre backs absolutely fine for a few more years. But if you're looking at attacking players, then maybe that's where United. And I think for midfield, maybe United are looking for a little bit younger. Um, welcome to the chat. Is it Hyena? So welcome to chat Hyena. So we're at proper midfield revamp. The football will be horrendous under Carrick. And I think about a proper midfield revamp, I think that everybody expects that it's going to be difficult. That's why that when people talk about their priority signings, I think most people put the first two positions they want to sign as midfielders as a minimum. I've said we need three. I think most people would say we need at least as a minimum two. But I think most people are now looking at it thinking if you're going to get two midfielders in, you're effectively replacing Christian Eriksen and Casemiro, but Agate should probably move on as well. And then you look at it and go, well, Toby Collier's out on loan. Is he going to come back? Are we going to be pushing Kone from like academy? I think we're going to be looking at a big investment on midfield. How many players would you like, for example? I know because I just see your comment, and I think you're new to the channel. Just if you want to post a comment of which midfielder options you'd like, I think most people have a probably the same sort of options. But if you got three, I'd just be interested to see. So very good attacking left back from Strasbourg. So 23 years old. I'm afraid that's an interesting one actually. I wonder whether one of the things I did read was United did say they wanted to go for like quite high quality rather than spread their kind of thin. So I don't know. I don't know if that means Manchester United are going to spend quite big on certain positions, but no, a lot of people looking at this, and we're discussing this every day at the moment. I think a lot of us look at it and think actually when you look at the transfer market and look at all the options, there are quite a few available options in terms of like backup striker or backup left back or a centre back or midfielder that are available on a free. It does seem to be that United aren't necessarily. Well, we haven't done that for a while, have we? I'm trying to think. The last time we did a significant deal of that nature was probably Cavani, and that he was probably a bit older than any player we're looking at as well. So I don't mind that, but I think for some reason United don't seem to be doing that. So we'll have to see. Go on this one. So former Brighton midfielder is now back on form, doing very well in Strasbourg. There's going to be endless players linked. Do you think United? Does anybody think United are actually working on one or two deals that we don't know about? Because there has been occasionally. I think the Aiden Heaven one came out of nowhere, didn't it? I don't think there was much said before we got him. It could be this one say Amrin is emerging as a strong replacement for. Well, I think Amrin did well in the Portuguese league, didn't he? So he knows the league. I think it's probably a sensible appointment, to be honest. If you're going to guess where Amarin goes next, the Portuguese league would make the most sense, like 100%. I don't see. I think that's probably if you're looking at where he's going to go next, that's probably makes the most sense. Go back there, kind of rebuild a little bit, maybe learn some things from Manchester United, and then he'll probably come back at some point to a different league. So that's probably what I'm thinking regarding that one. There was in terms of left backs. I don't mind. I think with United, the story I saw about left backs was Manchester United tried to sign the left back from Sheffield Wednesday. In the end, he went to Chelsea. You can assume that Chelsea probably gave him quite a long contract, probably financial security, and he's probably going to be loaned out somewhere, and we've probably forgotten about who he is. But I think United are looking in the same sort of vein. So that's why I was thinking they might be looking at Leon potentially in the future. But we've got him at the moment, gradually coming through the youth ranks. You then also look at maybe a Mass gets a go or an option, but I think the left backs we're looking at, I don't know. Porro was interesting because Pedro Porro was the first time we looked at somebody that was a bit older and would cost a bit more. But no, I'm wondering whether United go not cheap on defence, but maybe they look at prioritising midfield. And I think the defensive options might be something they look at next season. I think if you're looking at where they're going to spend the money, I think it's going to be midfield, isn't it? I think everybody watching is thinking that three midfield signings, probably up to £200 million spent on midfield, and then you probably look at maybe left wing as being big money. I think that's where we're going with this one. But is Alex Scott actually potentially quite a cheap deal if he's for 50 million? Because I remember talking about this yesterday. Actually, Jules covered it as well because that could be possibly like one of the next deals Man United look at. Sometimes I look at this deal. I think is this going to be one of those deals that it's pretty good for Manchester United to have these conversations about Alex Scott and Bournemouth and maybe push this into the media because this is a good option if Belieber becomes extremely expensive. I think we saw loads of numbers, didn't we? When I saw recently, I saw that Crystal Palace might be looking at a deal of maybe 60 to 65 million for Adam Wharton. There might be like a clause or there might be an agreement that that sort of price they would then take for Adam Wharton. And that would be that would probably lower the price for like some alternative targets, I think. So it might be that everybody thinks these players are all going to cost extremely expensive, but there's no guarantee of that. So Cody says three midfielders, left back, shrewd deal for a striker, where to play Dorgu. Then I think Dorgu was a left wing back to start with, wasn't he? But I think most people see him as a left winger, don't they now? So if Dorgu becomes number two left midfield, left wing, what happens to Cunha? Yeah, it's probably I suppose it's not a bad problem that you have two players fighting for a position. I think at the moment Cunha is about what 4 years, 5 years older than Dorgu. So Dorgu could be like in terms of like the positioning in the squad, Cunha's going to be a first team player most of the season. You'd assume that, but then you'd look at Dorgu as someone that can definitely, definitely step in with like not much of a drop. I mean, one thing that's going to be, I suppose, apparent is like both these players. Well, I suppose when you get to Champions League and Premier League football next season, you're going to have a bit of squad, bit of depth, aren't you? I think with Dorgu, his natural position might be more attacking, but he's still a player that's progressing. So we saw some very good games right before he got injured. We have to see what happens when he comes back. I think he's very close to returning, but I'm wondering whether Manchester United don't risk it at the moment. If I would be a bit, I would say don't rush Dorgu back because we're going to get Champions League football, so no need to rush him back. Make sure he's fully recovered. He's a physical player. He's got very, no, he's a sort of, if you get hamstring injuries and things, you want to make sure you're fully recovered because it does impact kind of his intensity and his speed, acceleration. So I would say that he definitely like don't necessarily rush him back, but if when he's ready to come back, then potentially he could get a couple of games at the end of the season with like low pressure games when we've qualified for Champions League. But no, I think with next season he's going to get a lot of football anyway. And big up to Mr. B as well. Good to see you. So we need Dorgu to get match time or he won't develop. I say Cunha's a super sub for you. So if he's not starting left midfield, I would start him left back. So I suppose, interested to see actually. I know when we're linked to different head coaches, I think under Michael Carrick, then we did see Cunha being benched and we did see Dorgu starting. But I think if you're looking at who's first team player, I would say I would see Cunha as being a starter at this point in time, and I think Dorgu has got to fight to try and get the position off Cunha. Cunha's been very good recently and very good finisher. He's been a key player when Mbeumo has dropped off a little bit, and Sesko has dropped off a little bit when he's starting games. I think Cunha's been like one of our better players recently. I would argue that it with lots of games next season then Dorg is going to have plenty of match time. He's going to get plenty of games with, say, you got the League Cup matches, Champions League matches. There's going to be a lot of football, so I think it's going to be absolutely fine. I think Dorgu will learn loads from Cunha, loads from Bruno, and there could be scenarios where they're both playing in the same team as well. So I think they can both play in the same team. That's another option as well. I think Dorgu is like super versatile. So if you follow Dorgu's career at Lecce, he's played left back, right back, left wing, right wing, and at Manchester United he's played as a wing back as well. So he could play in different positions across the front. I think it would be interesting to see. I mean, they actually I'm trying to think. Didn't Cunha and Dorgu linked up for the second Man City goal, didn't they? So I think they on the same team. I think they could be. So it could be effective. So I think it's going to be a. It's not. I think this one is interesting because it's not necessarily Dorgu versus Cunha for match time. It could be Dorgu plus Cunha, and it could be Dorgu fighting Ahmad Jallo for maybe a position on that side. It could be like Cunha also having an option to play somewhere else in the team. It's not bad. It's not a problem, is it? It's good to see. It's good to see competition for places, isn't it? I say Dorgu looked awesome for you. It was to be honest, that was probably a low point of the season when Dorgu was like amazing, then suddenly got injured. But we've seen with Dorgu, he's got a finish. Like the goal against actually he scored against Man City the second goal, didn't he, Dorgu? And he scored against Arsenal that ridiculous shot. So yeah, no, so yeah, Dorgu is one that's really stepped up, and at this point in time, a very short kind of amount of time to actually judge Dorgu on. But Dorgu's like becoming like a big game player, isn't he? Like Dorgu's stepping up against Arsenal and Man City and making massive contributions. But if you think about it as well, that in the same game, we're talking about two games, Manchester City and Arsenal, the two best teams in the Premier League. Cunha also a factor in both those games as well. So these two players, I think Dorgu gets no, they both scored against Arsenal. Cunha got the winner in that game. Dorgu got a wonder goal for our second. So yeah, it's a good problem to have, isn't it? That I think somehow we need to try and get them both into the team. That's what I'm thinking. So if we get left winger becomes third in the list. No, I think with this one, what I was saying was I think Ahmad Jallo might be like if you're looking at Cunha and Cunha and Dorgu, I think there's a Dorgu is certainly fighting for a position, and it might be that he's got other players missing out. I think Cunha's like doing himself no harm at the moment, is he, in terms of what he's doing. Now, maybe that's the plan, Mr. B. just doing a great job last night and answering a lot of good questions we got. So looking at this one, this is the poll we got at the moment. I'll just end the poll so we can have a look. Will Carrick be in charge next season? At the moment, this is probably about as close to 100% as I've seen from any sort of vote so far with Carrick. 94% of people think Carrick will be in charge next season. So well, a lot of certainty there. Yeah. So I'm actually probably thinking I'm 60-40 in thinking of this one. So I'm thinking at the moment, I think it's Carrick's. I'm not going to say it's Carrick's to lose. I think it's Carrick's is just has got his foot in the door, hasn't he? And all he's done so far is prove that he can get Champions League football with this squad of players. And I think Manchester United might think, right, you can do that with this set of players. What can you do with slightly better players? Like, what can you do if we fix midfield? Can you do it then? And I think the expectation then will be your team squad's a bit better. Can you get Champions League football again? And can you get through the group stage of the Champions League, qualify for Europe? I'm actually genuinely excited about the Champions League this season. We haven't played in this expanded competition. We need to get in there. We need to like match up against that brilliant Paris Saint-Germain team we've seen playing amazing football. We've seen them beat Chelsea. No, we've seen them beat what Arsenal, Man City, Liverpool. Let's have a crack at them, see what they're like. 'Cause we had some great games for them before they got that when they had Mbappe. But guys, if anyone's got any questions of anything we discussed as well, so does that mean you move Cunha to right wing over Ahmed and Dorgu? I think it's just I think it's like United can be somewhat fluid in matches as well. That you can see players moving over, switching sides during matches. I'm just saying at the moment, I think Ahmad Jallo is not offering the team as much as Dorgu is, and Dorgu is carrying a significant goal threat from what we saw. Cunha had a significant goal threat, and I think if Manchester United are going to be playing either 4-2-3-1 or 4-3-3, I think all the attacking players have to have a significant goal threat. Like Garnacho didn't really do that for me. Rasmus didn't. I'm a bit concerned about Ahmad Diallo's output. I know other aspects of his game are fine. I think United just need to have the constant kind of constant upgrades in the team. And at the moment, I don't. I mean, the talk about playing him at left back is interesting because I don't know whether that's going to happen, but certainly it's something that he has done in the past, just not at United for some reason. Probably soon. Well, probably soon. I think Dorga will be back quite soon. That's what I'm thinking. So I forgot to include Master for exits. Yeah, he's probably going to be maybe what is he going to be going for almost no money? I think that's probably why we forgot him. But I think at the moment, I don't know what's going to happen with him. Whether Man United can even get a sale. So if United don't want to appoint anyone that would be occupied with the World Cup, then it chalks off Nagelsmann. Exactly. And if the stories yesterday were to be believed that Nagelsmann actually wants to get wants is interested in the Real Madrid job, then that's probably another problem as well. I mean, the Real Madrid job. If you go there, you're going to have to win everything anyway, aren't you? Otherwise, you get moved on. So statistically, Cunha, Sesko, Ahmed have scored more goals off the bench. I mean, I suppose that Mbeumo started every single game, hasn't he? So yeah, it's difficult. Phil's got like a final question before I head off. I will be back live 1 p.m. with latest news again, and hopefully there'll be something breaking that's a bit different as well. I think with this, that a lot of the stories that I've been seeing this morning and late last night were pretty much Michael Carrick, and it's down to Chelsea really just losing 5 straight games. Michael Carrick has pretty much got his foot in the door. Maybe the second foot's almost following. Nothing's changed. Journalists think that if Champions League football is at Old Trafford next season, that's job done. I don't think that's 100% the case because you never know what the Glazers are thinking, what Ineos are thinking behind the scenes. I get the feeling that ultimately, I'm looking at next season and I'm thinking, right, get this sorted out and then get transfers done. I think they're looking at potentially what happens in a few years' time. Are they looking down the line thinking, what's the best possible head coach we can get? Because it might be that there's an opportunity in a couple of years' time with other head coaches leaving their respective clubs at the top of the Premier League. It might be if we can have an elite coach, then that might be the issue. So we might be in an advantageous position. Yeah, big up. Check out Mr. B later streaming. Mr. B will be on the channel here talking about Brentford on Sunday as well. We'll do the Sunday call-in show. People that want to get involved in the call-in show, we'll be starting about 7 p.m. on a Sunday. 10, I think we're going to have like 15-minute time slots to start with. If it gets busy, it might be 10 minutes, and people can come on, chat, and then we'll go through guests one by one and see what people have to say. Big up to people that subscribed. Massive thanks for helping grow the community. We've got some amazing people watching this channel, some quality. Also, big shout out to the moderators, keeping things smooth and ticking along nicely as well. And just a general welcome and thanks for the support. We're trying to push on. We're trying to create an environment in YouTube where people's thoughts and opinions are appreciated. People can share their views. People can put their ideas out there. And also the socials are pinned as well. We've got the Discord group, we've got the Facebook group. These are ones where feel free to post videos and comments and share information there. I posted a Conceição video yesterday. I quite liked that. It was a show a bit of if you see some players and see some if you see any sort of videos on YouTube or things you want to share, little video clips of players we're scouting, just put them in there as well. Or funny things you see, you want to share that football related, things that we can talk about on the channel as well. That will always help. But the Discord group is up to about 65, 66 people now. So please get involved in that as well. And for Mr. B, the Discord group, there is a section to self promote as well. So you can put your links for your Brentford channel in the Discord if you want to. There is a section for that as well. So if you're on Discord, then please take advantage of that. Help grow the community sort of everywhere. And big thanks to people. We will be back at 1 p.m. Hopefully spot on at 1 p.m. And I'm going to be checking news later today. But if you follow me on socials, please feel free to tag me, send me stories as well, and we'll have a look and see what's trending at the time. So thanks guys for watching. Have a great rest of your day. It looks nice and sunny outside, so I might go and get some sun. And we will see you guys later.